Ella Fitzgerald walked into the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel on a warm October evening in 1955 carrying a small suitcase and wearing her best dress. And the man at the front desk looked at her like she'd walked into the wrong building. He didn't smile, didn't welcome her, just stared. When Ella said she had a reservation, he glanced at his book and said 4 words that she'd heard too many times before. Blacks use service entrance. Ella stood there, the greatest jazz singer in the world, being told she wasn't good enough to walk through the front door of a hotel. But someone else was in that lobby, someone who'd been watching, and what Marilyn Monroe did in the next 60 seconds didn't just get Ella through that door. It changed how that hotel treated people forever. This is the story of 2 women from completely different worlds who understood something that mattered more than fame. That dignity isn't negotiable, and that silence in the face of injustice makes you part of the problem. It was October 15th, 1955, Beverly Hills, California. The Beverly Hills Hotel, the Pink Palace on Sunset Boulevard, one of the most exclusive, glamorous hotels in America, where movie stars stayed, where deals were made, where power and wealth congregated. The hotel had a policy, unwritten but understood. Black performers could perform in the hotel's clubs and venues, but they couldn't stay as guests, couldn't eat in the restaurant, couldn't sit in the lobby. They were expected to use the service entrance. Come in through the back, stay invisible. Ella Fitzgerald was 38 years old. She'd been singing professionally for 20 years. She had the most perfect voice in jazz, 3 octaves of pure, flawless tone. She could scat like nobody else. She could sing ballads that made grown men cry. She'd won awards, sold millions of records, performed for presidents. But in 1955 in Beverly Hills, she was still expected to use the back door. Ella had a performance that night at the hotel's Coconut Grove nightclub. Big show, sold out. All the Hollywood elite would be there. She'd been booked for a week-long residency. Good money, prestige venue. Her manager had made the arrangements, including a room at the hotel for the week. Made sense. Why would Ella want to drive back and forth from her place every night when she could just stay where she was performing? But when Ella arrived at the hotel that evening, 3 hours before showtime, the front desk clerk made it clear. The room reservation was a mistake, a misunderstanding. "We don't accommodate Negro guests," he said it matter-of-factly, like he was explaining hotel policy about pets or smoking. Ella felt that familiar knot in her stomach, that mixture of anger and humiliation that never quite went away no matter how famous she got. "I'm performing here tonight," Ella said quietly. "I have a reservation. My manager made it weeks ago." The clerk didn't even look at his book again. "I'm sure there was a miscommunication, but our policy is clear. If you need accommodation, I can recommend some suitable establishments in the area." By suitable establishments, he meant hotels in the black neighborhoods. Miles away. Ella understood perfectly. She stood there for a moment, trying to decide what to do. She could make a scene, demand to see a manager. But she'd been through this before. Making a scene usually just made things worse. Got you blacklisted. Got you labeled as difficult. Her manager would handle it. Find her somewhere else to stay. She'd come back tonight through the service entrance to perform. Smile, sing, make white people happy. Then leave through the back door again. That was how it worked. Ella picked up her suitcase. She was about to turn and walk out when a voice behind her said, "Excuse me, is there a problem?" Ella turned around. Standing about 10 feet away near the lobby seating area was Marilyn Monroe. The Marilyn Monroe. Blonde hair, red lipstick, white dress, impossibly beautiful. But there was something in her eyes, intelligence and anger. The desk clerk's entire demeanor changed. "Miss Monroe, no problem at all. Just a small misunderstanding." Marilyn walked over to the desk. She looked at Ella, then at the clerk. "What kind of misunderstanding?" The clerk shifted uncomfortably. "Just a mix-up with a reservation. Nothing to concern yourself with, Miss Monroe." Marilyn looked at Ella. "You're Ella Fitzgerald." It wasn't a question. Ella nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Marilyn smiled. "I saw you sing at the Apollo in New York 2 years ago. You were magnificent. That night changed my life. I'd never heard anything like your voice." Ella was surprised. Marilyn Monroe at the Apollo Theater in Harlem? That was unusual. Marilyn saw her surprise. I don't just go to movie premieres. I like real talent. And you're the real thing. Marilyn turned back to the desk clerk. So what's the problem with Miss Fitzgerald's reservation? The clerk's face was getting red. Well, Miss Monroe, hotel policy, we don't generally accommodate. He couldn't bring himself to say it directly to Marilyn. Marilyn's voice went cold. Don't accommodate what? Paying guests? World-famous singers? Women? The clerk tried again. It's not my decision, Miss Monroe. It's hotel policy. Marilyn looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, here's a new policy. Either Miss Fitzgerald gets her room and is treated with the respect she deserves, or I check out right now. And I'll make sure every reporter in Los Angeles knows why. The clerk's face went white. Miss Monroe, please. You don't understand. Marilyn cut him off. I understand perfectly. You're telling one of the greatest artists in America that she's not good enough to sleep in the same hotel where she's performing. That's what I understand. The clerk looked panicked. Marilyn Monroe was staying in their penthouse suite. She was doing interviews at the hotel. Photos. She was the biggest star in Hollywood. If she checked out and told the press why, the hotel would be destroyed. He held up his hands. Let me speak to the manager. Just one moment. He disappeared into a back office. Marilyn turned to Ella. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. Ella didn't know what to say. This white movie star was fighting her battle. It was surreal. You don't have to do this, Miss Monroe. I can find somewhere else to stay. Marilyn's voice was firm. No, you shouldn't have to. You're performing here. You're a guest. You should be treated like a guest. The manager came out, a man in his 50s in an expensive suit. He approached with a fake smile. Miss Monroe, there seems to be some confusion. Marilyn crossed her arms. No confusion. Your desk clerk just told Miss Fitzgerald she couldn't have a room because she's black. That's not confusion. That's discrimination. The manager's smile faltered. Miss Monroe, you have to understand we have standards, traditions. Our regular guests expect a certain... Marilyn stepped closer. Your regular guests are about to read in every newspaper that you told Ella Fitzgerald to use the service entrance. How do you think that's going to play? Especially with people who actually care about talent instead of skin color. The manager looked at Ella, then at Marilyn. He was calculating, weighing options. Finally, he said, Of course, Miss Fitzgerald is welcome. There was clearly a misunderstanding. We'd be honored to have her stay with us. Marilyn didn't move. And she'll use the front entrance? The lobby? The restaurant? Everything any other guest would use? The manager nodded. Of course. Marilyn turned to Ella. Is that acceptable to you? Ella's eyes were wet. Yes, thank you. Marilyn looked back at the manager. If I hear that Miss Fitzgerald was treated with anything less than absolute respect, I will personally ensure that everyone knows about it. Are we clear? The manager nodded. Crystal clear, Miss Monroe. The desk clerk, who'd been standing there looking mortified, pulled out a key. Room 412, Miss Fitzgerald. One of our best. I'll have someone take your bag up. Ella took the key. Her hand was shaking slightly. Marilyn touched her arm gently. You okay? Ella nodded. I'm okay, thank you. I don't know how to thank you enough. Marilyn smiled. You can thank me by singing tonight. I'm coming to your show, front row, and I expect it to be incredible. Ella smiled back. I'll do my best. Marilyn winked. Your best is better than anyone else's perfect. Ella went to her room, sat on the bed, and cried. Not from sadness, from relief, from gratitude, from the sheer exhaustion of constantly fighting to be treated like a human being. She'd been doing this for 20 years, every hotel, every restaurant, every venue, always the same battle, always the same humiliation. But tonight, someone had stood up for her. Someone with the power to make a difference had used that power. That night, Ella Fitzgerald walked onto the stage of the Coconut Grove to thunderous applause. The room was packed, and sitting in the front row, wearing a stunning black dress, was Marilyn Monroe. Ella looked at her. Marilyn smiled and gave her a little wave. Ella stepped up to the microphone. Good evening. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, And I want to thank someone special who's here, someone who showed me today that kindness and courage aren't about what you look like or where you come from. They're about what you do when you see something wrong. Miss Monroe, this first song is for you. Ella sang "Someone to Watch Over Me." She sang it directly to Marilyn, and she poured every ounce of emotion into it. The room was silent except for her voice. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Marilyn was crying openly. The applause was deafening. After the show, Marilyn came backstage. They hugged. Marilyn said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Ella said, "You didn't have to do what you did today." Marilyn looked at her seriously. "Yes, I did. Because if people like me don't use what we have to change things, what's the point of having it? I'm famous because I look a certain way. You're famous because you're talented. But we're both still women. We're both still fighting to be taken seriously. Maybe for different reasons, but we're fighting. So we should fight together." They sat in Ella's dressing room for 2 hours that night, talking, laughing, sharing stories. They came from completely different worlds. Ella had grown up poor, black, in a time when her opportunities were limited by the color of her skin. Marilyn had grown up poor, white, bounced through foster homes, used and abused by the Hollywood system that made her famous. But they understood each other. They understood what it meant to be underestimated, to be seen as less than, to have to fight twice as hard for half the respect. They became friends, real friends. Over the next few years, they stayed in touch. Marilyn came to Ella's shows whenever she could. Ella sent Marilyn records. They talked on the phone, and Marilyn did something else. She used her power to help Ella. She called the owner of Mocambo, one of LA's most exclusive nightclubs, a club that had never booked a black performer. Marilyn told the owner, "Book Ella Fitzgerald, and I'll sit in the front row every night. I'll bring the press. I'll make it the hottest ticket in town." The owner agreed. Ella played a 2-week residency at Mocambo in 1955. Marilyn sat front row every night for the first week. True to her word, she brought the press. The shows were packed, photographers everywhere, and Ella was magnificent. After that, everything changed for Ella. Doors that had been closed suddenly opened. Clubs that wouldn't book her suddenly wanted her. The color barrier in LA's top venues started to crack. Not completely, but it started. Stories like this one deserve to be remembered. The moments when legends stood up for each other. The acts of courage that changed industries. If you want to hear more stories about the people who shaped an era, the friendships that broke barriers, and the humanity that changed the world, this channel tells those stories. Because these aren't just tales about famous people, they're lessons about using your power for good. Ella Fitzgerald went on to become the First Lady of Song. She won 14 Grammy Awards, sold over 40 million records, became one of the most beloved and respected artists in history, and she never forgot what Marilyn Monroe did for her in that hotel lobby. In interviews, Ella would say, "I owe Marilyn a real debt. She personally called the owner of the Mocambo and told him she wanted me booked immediately. She told him she'd take a front table every night. The owner said yes, and Marilyn was there. Front table every night. The press went overboard. After that, I never had to play a small jazz club again." Marilyn Monroe died in 1962. She was only 36 years old. At her funeral, there weren't many Hollywood stars. The industry she'd helped build had turned its back on her. But Ella Fitzgerald sent flowers, a huge arrangement. The card said simply, "You made me believe in goodness. Thank you for everything. Love, Ella." Years later, in the 1970s, a journalist asked Ella about Marilyn. What was she really like? Ella thought for a moment. Then she said, "She was kind. She was brave. She saw injustice and she stopped it. She could have walked away, could have ignored what was happening to me, but she didn't. She risked her own reputation to stand up for what was right. That's who she really was. Not the blonde bombshell, not the sex symbol. She was a woman with a conscience who used her power to help people who couldn't help themselves. That's the story that should be told, not just about Ella Fitzgerald's magnificent voice or Marilyn Monroe's beauty, but about two women who understood that fame is worthless if you don't use it to make the world better. About a moment in a hotel lobby when one woman refused to accept injustice and another woman never forgot it. about friendship across racial lines in an era when that friendship was radical, about courage that doesn't come from physical strength, but from moral clarity. On October 15, 1955, in the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel, Marilyn Monroe drew a line. She said, "Either treat Ella Fitzgerald with respect or lose me." And she meant it. That's not just standing up for someone. That's putting everything on the line. That's understanding that your silence makes you complicit. That's being more than a star. That's being human. And both of these women, Ella and Marilyn, showed us what that means.